Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're just getting some rain here at the moment, which is really nice. It was very hot yesterday in Adelaide, 41 degrees, and we had bushfires started in the Adelaide Hills yesterday, and at one stage our youngest son and his family almost had to evacuate, and they were thinking about it and coming to stay with us in the suburbs. A bit of rain falling now, so hopefully that's going to subdue the bushfires. I think some homes may have been lost, but anyway, that's just an update on where things are at in Adelaide at the moment. I can hear the rain on the roof, which is beautiful. So today's topic: would you looking at me, this old guy here talking to you, would you contemplate hiring me to photograph your wedding when I look this old? So, some time back on my blog, where I've been posting for some time, I wrote an article called "Too Old to be a Wedding Photographer. When do you know, if you're already doing it, that you're too old?" And I thought I might post this up and put a link back to that article I wrote back in 2011. I progressively updated that as I got closer and closer to finally pulling the plug. So I'm just going to read from that, and I'll put a link to it in afterwards, and you'll see a few photos on there that you can look at as well afterwards in the link. So now I'll be going back and forth like this because I'm reading off my computer at the moment. So, here we go. Too old to be a wedding photographer? This question has recently been running on the Digital Wedding Photographers Forum, DWF. I don't think it exists anymore. I used to look at it back then. As a 65-year-old, when I wrote this I was 65, who last photographed a wedding in November 2011 and started in 1975, I feel I can make some observations, and even now when I'm nearly 10 years on from this time, I can still make some observations as well. Surely wedding photography, I'll read on. Surely wedding photography is all about quality of work, pricing, whether you can relate to the photographer, that's the customer that is, and you like what they've shown you of their last work. The customer may, of course, want to employ a young, trendy, fashionable and award-winning photographer for their own prestige, perhaps, but not necessarily so much the quality of the work. It's trendy to have a top-of-the-line photographer photographing your wedding for you. Doesn't mean to say they're any better than someone else. Anyway, that's perfectly legitimately their call. From the photographer's point of view, I make the following points about when you're contemplating this question, if you've been photographing them for a while like I did. Are you fit enough to get through the day both physically and mentally? Are you still on top of your game and striving for improvement? Can you use all the modern technology? Can you deliver the couple what the couple want? I'll just move this up a bit so I can read a bit more. Is your age something that has grown with your photography, and thus you have lots of experience, or you are an older would-be wedding photographer who may be a good all-round photographer? In other words, you haven't taken the plunge yet. It may be questionable to have a go at wedding photography if you're in that last category, when you've been around for quite a while and you're a good photographer but you haven't really taken the plunge. But once again, it depends on your customer's perception of you and your abilities as a photographer. My main concern personally comes in the physical ability area. As you get older, you become far less mobile, and if you are doing wedding photography as it should be done, you will come home feeling you have done a solid day's physical work. My wife has continually said I need to be fitter and carry less weight. She is right. She was right then and she's right now. The worst case scenario, and this is for all photographers, regardless of age, is do you have someone to step in if you are physically unwell or unable to do the job on the wedding day? Fortunately, I always had people who could back me up, and I quite often worked with a second photographer. There does come a time when we all have to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I've done that several times, but people still ask me, even now. My next wedding, when I wrote this, was in December 2012. I will be closer to 67 than 66 at that time. I was a reluctant starter for this wedding, but could not say no as I was keenly sought after, and there are close friendship ties. I will make sure I have safeguards in place, such as a standby photographer if I can call on if needed at the time. So, I think that it might have to be the final one. This is back then, but there are still nieces and possibly nephews that will want to engage my services. Update on the 2nd of December 2012. Had just completed my latest wedding as above. It was a very busy and action-packed wedding, and my wife and I are a bit photo-lagged after taking many shots. My wife came as my assistant on that day, and she did towards the end of my photography career, or wedding photography career. We stayed at the reception as guests. As an older photographer, I had a little bit of leg cramp at the bride's house and hands cramping at times on the way to the reception. Not a good feeling, but the amount of shots one takes with digital SLRs is a factor in this. We tend to take way more than when we used to shoot film. I had a Canon, I used a Canon 600D as my main camera and a Canon 400D for some shots on my telephoto zoom. I had a Canon 430EX flash. My wife used a Pentax KR with short zoom and a Metz flash. Too old. Were we too old? At the time, I said we are possibly the oldest wedding photography couple around at present. I am 66. My wife is 63. I think this will be my last wedding. Time to pull up stumps. At the same time this week as Ricky Ponting retires from Test cricket, and for some remarkably similar reasons. He was losing his touch. If you don't know, Ricky Ponting was a former Australian cricket captain and one of the world's greatest. But he was starting to lose his skills and knew when to pull the plug on his cricket career. Update as of February 2016. I am still doing about one wedding a year. As an assistant, I am fast approaching 70. I have been helping a young friend who is at the beginning of her photography career. Next wedding is on the 5th of March 2016. A PS to that. Did this wedding last Saturday, enjoyed it and got some great shots that with permission I will post at a later date. But I fear that will be the last, except maybe to help out relatives. It was a very warm day and I suffered from severe leg cramps all night after the wedding. Note well, as at September 2016, I think I am definitely past my use-by date as an active, regular wedding photographer. I have just last week had heart surgery after a very blocked large artery was discovered, and now I'm home recovering. I'm hoping to end up fitter than I was, but it was a close call. And then later on in March 11th 2016, when did I write this? Yeah, March 11th 2016, I titled this post, "Finally Pulled the Plug." And I said this: in 1975 I started photographing weddings. I was 20 at the time. My dad was my first trainer in photography. And you'll see a picture here when I put this link of me back in the 70s wearing a safari suit, which was my favourite standard wedding photography union in the 1970s. Now this last weekend I assisted a young friend in a wedding shoot, and at the end of the day and into the night I suffered some terrible cramps. I decided that now, almost 70, it is time to declare my innings closed on officially shooting weddings. I've been averaging about one a year over the last 5 years. I've been thoroughly enjoying over the last 10 years the transition from film photography to digital, and marvel at the cameras now being produced at a rapid rate. I'll probably in future still take some shots at weddings where I am a guest, but apart from that, maybe only when I'm Uncle Jeff. It has been a fantastic journey, and I've made many wonderful friends in the photography industry, and have also been able to mentor and train some young photographers along the way. On this blog and my other blogs, I've posted some of my training in wedding photography tips from my course I developed some years ago. If you are an aspiring wedding photographer, you may find a lot of help there. see my other blogs on photography. A lot of this training is also posted on this blog. Anyway, there's some thoughts. When I wrote this one, Too Old to Be a Wedding Photographer, someone did respond to that, and he was an older guy, and he was raising the same question himself. And I suggested to him it might be time to pull the plug and smell the roses, which is what I tend to do these days. But I'm still active in photography. I'm still training people who come to ask me, and involved with photography groups, and do all my YouTubing and blogging, of course. So as a photographer, you never really retire, but there does come a time when, and you will know when the time comes, when you say no more. Just recently, well, maybe 8 or 9 months ago, I was asked by one of my sons, that one of his friends said, "Dad, he would like you to photograph his wedding. Have you got one more left in you?" And I said, "No, I don't think I have, sorry." As it turns out, on that particular day, I was in all sorts of trouble with a hip problem. So I'm glad I said no, because I wouldn't have been able to do it. So anyway, I think hopefully this might be helpful to you. I'll put some links in there for you, and tell me what you think. Are you too old? Are you just starting out? I guess the other question is, when are you too young to become a wedding photographer? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Maybe you've got some thoughts on that too. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this if you like it, and subscribe if you wish. I'll see you next time.